that you made that endorsement in 2020, are you happy with the state of America?
Am I happy with the state of America right now? Well, that answer is no. Do I believe we're going to get better? I believe in that. I'm an optimistic guy, and I believe we can get better. The endorsement that I made years ago with Biden was one I thought was the best decision for me at that time. And I thought back then, when we talk about, hey, I'm in this position where I have some influence, and it's my job then. I felt like that then. It's my job now to exercise my influence and share with this. This is who I'm going to endorse. Am I going to do that again this year? That answer is no.
The rats are fleeing the sinking ship, gang. They are sounding the retreat. Biden is imploding, and all the suckers like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson that endorsed him back in 2020 are turning their backs on him for 2024. We got a huge development right now as we speak. Trump is poised to be the very first Republican to win the popular vote in 20 years. This is huge, and it's yet the latest reason for why Democrats are increasingly panicking. Also, for the European farmers. I'm just going to tell you straight out, they've won. They've won virtually every concession they've demanded from the bullies in Brussels. This is going to absolutely make your day. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe. But we got a jam-packed show today. As I said, we got Trump winning the popular vote in multiple. Wait till you see this. Multiple polls. This is going to blow your mind. We got the European farmer revolt victorious. We got, of course, answers to all your questions. As has been the case over the last few months, however, our super chats have been disabled because we've been completely demonetized, totally demonetized by Google. We are in the process of trying to rectify that. But in the meantime, all you got to do, if you want to ask me your questions, you want me to answer them on today's live stream, just click on that link below. Sign up for our Insiders Club, and you can ask me your question. There you go. Join.turleytalks.com. Just sign up. Ask me your questions via our Insiders Club virtual platform, and I'll answer them right here on this live stream. And if you sign up today for Insiders Club, you can ask me all the questions you want for just $5 a month. It's the least I can do to show my appreciation for you and for as much as you've done for me and for this channel. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. What can I say? Democrats are freaking out. I mean, make no mistake, they are panicked. They are really beginning to come to the realization that it's looking increasingly likely not that just Biden is going to lose in November, but he's going to lose in an unbelievable landslide. Here's the late night clown, Jimmy Kimmel, channeling precisely that inner Democrat panic.
Not only is he still the front runner, according to a new Wall Street Journal poll, Trump leads Biden in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, all important states, which just gives me a headache. How could this be? I mean, he doesn't even lead in a poll of people who worked for him. His own.
How is this guy funny? I mean, if ever there was an indictment of the fall of Western civilization, there it is. There. Do you just compare that guy to Johnny Carson, right? Steve Allen. You know, my dad was actually college roommates with Steve Allen. Don Rickles. I mean, just or just even frankly, David Letterman or Jay Leno for that matter. I mean, the way this Kimmel figure is so outclassed by those guys. I mean, again, he's not even funny. It's not that he's not even funny. He's not even interesting. I mean, anyway, Kimmel is channeling that inner panic there. Make no mistake. He is channeling that inner panic setting in among Democrats all across the country. They are seriously starting to freak out. There's actually a poll. It just came out the other day that confirms this. Democrats are far more worried about Trump than Republicans are about Biden. 66% of Democrats are extremely fearful. That's the phrase used in the poll. Extremely fearful. Nearly 70% of Democrats are extremely fearful of another Trump term, and yet another 11% are saying they are somewhat fearful. So all told, 77% of Democrats, nearly 80% of Democrats are freaking out in some way, shape, or form over a Trump return. By contrast, just 49% of Republicans are worried about a second Biden term. 18% are somewhat fearful. So there's a clear discrepancy between these two groups. Democrats are overwhelmingly freaking out. Again, they're not going to, you're not necessarily going to hear this from the legacy media. The lying legacy media is doing everything they possibly can to try to breathe some life into this fledgling Biden campaign, right? They're pushing this pathetic comeback narrative. Oh, he's rising in the polls. Biden's surging. He's got Trump on his heels, right? That's what we've heard over the last 2 weeks. But I think I showed you earlier this week in a video, when you average out the latest polls in the RCP aggregate, right? So the Real Clear Politics aggregate, it just averages out all the polls. If you look at that aggregate over the last couple of weeks, take a look at it. I mean, do you believe your own eyes? Take a look at it. There's no surge. The blue line is basically flat. That's Biden's line. There is no surge. It's all a legacy media fabrication. There have been a couple of polls that show Biden up, but they are very, very problematic in their methodology. There's the latest one that just came from Pennsylvania that has Biden up by 10, and it's so absurd. It's from one of these outlets that have one of the worst records, but they're there to try to pump up Biden's aggregate numbers because he's just getting so pummeled. Actually, when all said and done, all you got to do is look at the state of Minnesota. Trump is just 3 points behind Biden in freaking Minnesota. Dude. I mean, dude, look at that. Rich Barris of the People's Pundit, he had some inside information on Minnesota a couple of weeks back. This is before we saw this RCP average coming out. He reported that Biden's actually being forced to spend money, lots of it, in freaking Minnesota, in the state that voted for Walter Mondale in 1984. And Rich pointed out brilliantly, I mean, if Biden is having to defend Minnesota, one of the bluest of blue states on the planet, what do you think things are really like in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania? Well, now we know as of this week, right? We talked about the big data Pennsylvania poll that dropped earlier this week. Trump is now trouncing Biden by 5 in Pennsylvania. He's trouncing Biden by freaking 5 in Pennsylvania. That's crazy. Now, again, that will probably most likely end up, getting closer, no question. But I mean, a 5-point advantage, 5 points, 45.7 over Biden, 40.3. And by the way, it widens when you bring in the other 3 candidates, RFK Jr., Jill Stein, Cornel West. And then when you look at Michigan, that poll just dropped the other day. Trump is now leading Biden by nearly 4 when you factor in RFK Jr. and Jill Stein and the others. So Trump really does at this point look like he's pulling away here. We talked yesterday about the key swing state of Arizona. All 15 counties in Arizona, all 15, every single one have been trending Republican in terms of voter identification and registration since 2020. Yuma and Navajo counties have actually flipped to the GOP. We're even seeing massive gains in counties dominated by Native Americans. Maricopa County, by far the largest county in Arizona, right, is now +6 Republican, up from plus 3.9 Republican in 2020. And that's key because the one who wins Maricopa wins Arizona. And Arizona as a whole has doubled their Republican advantage. They moved from a plus 2.7 Republican advantage to now a plus 5.8, a near plus 6 Republican advantage. A lot of this is trending towards this. A lot of this trend towards Republicans, and especially towards Trump, is coming from the Latino vote. Latinos are defecting from the Democrats. They are moving overwhelmingly towards the Republicans as they begin to align their voting with their conservative values. And what all this means, gang, is that Trump really does appear poised to pull off in 2024 what no Republican has been able to do in 20 years, since 2004. We got the stats. Wait until you see this. But first, gang, if you're just joining us, if you want to ask a question, because YouTube has unfortunately demonetized our channel, just click on that link below and join our Insiders Club. And then you can ask me all the questions you want through that platform, just $5 a month. You can ask me as many questions as you like. There it is, join.turleytalks.com. Join it. Join the near 6,000 people that have joined since YouTube has demonetized us. It's a way of pushing back on big tech while supporting a little dude like me. Also, gang, with everything going on right now, it is hard to say what actually could happen. You know, we can't be complacent. You know, the Democrats will stoop to new lows in 2024. So we got to be ready for anything. So that's why I partnered with Goldco. You guys know I'm a huge fan of hedging future risks with the timeless value of gold and silver. And that's why you've got to click on that link below or go to turleytalkslikesgold.com to get your free gold and silver kit. It's an amazing free resource that shows you step-by-step how to get into precious metals tax-free and penalty-free, even if your money's still in a retirement account like an IRA or 401k. And the best part, gang, is that you may already qualify to get up to $10,000 in free silver. You've seen the writing on the wall. Click on that link below or go to turleytalkslikesgold.com to get your free gold and silver kit, because this is about taking back control of your privacy and your freedom. We can't predict the future, but we can certainly prepare for it. So don't wait. Take action now. Click on that link below today. All right, gang. Political strategist Dick Morris had a really good analysis of precisely why Democrats are freaking out. He noted that Republicans have lost the popular vote in 5 of the last 6 presidential elections. The one exception, of course, was George W. Bush in 2004, when he barely squeaked by John Kerry in the popular vote. His dad, of course, in 1988 was the last one to have a blowout Republican election. But now in the current polling over the last couple of weeks, Morris points out, get this, these stats are blown. You might want to write these down. These stats are going to blow you away. I think they're going to encourage you. Morris points out that Trump has led Biden in 9 of the 10 polls that measure the 5-way popular vote, right? So that's Trump, Biden, RFK Jr., Jill Stein, and Cornel West, all right? So 9 of the last 10 polls, 5-way, Trump has won. But check this out. In the last 33 polls taken over the last few months, I believe since November of last year, in the last 33 polls taken over the last few months, do you want to take a guess at how many of those Trump was leading? These are 5-way races, right? That's what you're going to have to pull. It's not just going to be Trump Biden. It's going to be Trump Biden, Jill Stein, some Trump Biden, Jill Stein, RFK, some Trump Biden, Jill Stein, RFK, and Cornel West. In the last 33 polls, take a guess how many Trump has led. 29. Trump has led in 29 of the last 33 polls. And Biden has only led in 2 of them. The others are tied. So Trump is basically either leading or tied in 31 of 33 polls. It's absolutely amazing. Again, this is gigantic, gang. What we're seeing here, when all's said and done, this is Dick Morris's analysis. What we're seeing here is that Trump is winning the popular vote in a way no Republican has done in 20 years, since George W. Bush in 2004, right? Trump is poised to win the popular vote. This is why the Democrats are starting to seriously freak out here, okay? Again, I think it was Rich Barris's analysis. It shows that really, in the end, the only way Biden wins is if he wins the popular vote by about 4%. That way, he gets the margin he needs to make sure he wins the swing states, right? The big swing states, of course, are Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Some put North Carolina in there. North Carolina is not a swing state. North Carolina is deep, deep red at this point. Trump's trouncing Biden by 10 in many polls in North Carolina. North Carolina hasn't voted Democrat since 2008. It's really, especially in light of 2016, when you had Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, states that had not voted Republican in like freaking 30 years. The fact that they swung Republican, those are real swing states now. Unless Biden wins the popular vote by 4, or unless there's some serious shenanigans, which they're going to try to pull, which we'll talk about in due course. There's no way he's going to pull this off. And the legacy media is starting to realize this, to their own panic. Take a look at this panic coming from Politico. They're freaking out. And this, talking about this 5-way race, they're freaking out that RFK Jr. may have just sealed Biden's fate. Now, remember, the big concern about Bobby Kennedy Jr. is who was he going to hurt most? Since he's a populist, we were worried he was going to hurt Trump, right? But the numbers are in, and as we're finding, he's disproportionately hurting Biden. And we're seeing it particularly with the Latino vote, interestingly enough. Now, again, what we're seeing is Latinos are breaking away from the establishment Democrat Party. They're disproportionately attracted to Trump on the one hand, and we're finding out from this Politico article, they're also disproportionately attracted to RFK Jr., far more than Biden. They don't seem to really care for Biden. And what this is doing, when you factor in the huge attraction among Latinos to Trump, what this is doing is basically destroying the Democrat base that they were trying to build on cultural Marxist identity politics, literally centered on Latinos. Now, take a look at this panic piece from The Atlantic. They are openly admitting that Blacks and Latinos, particularly Black and Latino men, are disproportionately attracted to Trump. The Washington Post recently came out and admitted that Trump is seeing levels of minority support no Republican has reached in half a century. And they found that across 5 high-quality polls. Trump is averaging, across 5 high-quality polls taken relatively recently, Trump is averaging an astonishing 20% support among Black voters. That is unprecedented. 20% support among Black voters, who are probably the most dedicated Democrat constituency, at least over the last several decades. Trump is absolutely eating into that support. And on top of that, and again, this is the aggregate among 5 high-quality polls, they found an unprecedented 42% support among Latinos. Now, we're getting in individual polls that are showing that Trump is actually winning the Latino vote. The New York Times had a recent one that showed he's winning the Latino vote by 5. The point is, they're all showing the same thing. They're showing this massive, massive, massive swing towards Trump, right? Make sure you understand what's going on here, right? The Washington Post cross-referenced a number of different polls, all using their own methodologies, all using their different weighting systems and the like, and yet all 5 of those polls were coming to the same conclusion. They all corroborated that Trump has amassed support among minority voters that no Republican has seen in half a century. And again, it's largely due to the backlash, ironically, against this weaponized legalism that the Democrats thought they were going to win with. That freaking mugshot, that glorious, beautiful mugshot. We got that mugshot check out our store, our merch store. It's wonderful. It's glorious. It is the GOAT. It is the greatest of all time because it made Trump officially gangsta. He's now one of us. Voters who have consistently voted Democrat are now voting Trump almost solely based on the fact of that image because it made him one of them. Meaning that if you ask people, how many New York billionaires do you know, right? Or how many former presidents do you know? Of course, the answer is probably 0. But if you ask them, how many people do you know who have had mugshots taken? How many people do you know that have had lawfare imposed upon them, that have been victims of an unfair justice system? All the hands go up. Right? And I owe this observation to Robert Barnes. That mugshot basically transferred Trump from one cultural space, the New York billionaire former president that hardly anyone could actually relate to another cultural space, someone legally persecuted by an unfair and unjust judicial system that a lot of people can relate to. And that transference has endeared Trump to voters that otherwise would not have given him the time of day. Now, before we get into our next segment here, I do have to reiterate, I alluded to this here. All of this is very, very exciting. But this is absolutely no time to become complacent. The Democrats are going to pull out all the stops. I am not going to stop warning us here. We're not doing 2020 again, right? Where we're like, oh, we got this. We're crushing this. This is awesome. No, they, you know what they did in 2020. They are going to try to do that again in 2024. Now it's going to be harder. Wisconsin just made a lot harder for them to do that, right? Wisconsin just got rid of with the ballot harvesting measure. What is the other thing? You know, they're getting rid of all of these. They got rid of Zuckerbucks. You probably saw that. All these things that the Democrats were able to pull in 2020 are getting kind of pulled away from them in 2024. Even Arizona's cracked down even more of late on election integrity. Georgia has cracked down on it. Wisconsin's cracked down. Those are the three states. Those three states go Trump. It's over. It's over, provided they won all the, which he will do. He wins all the other states. So while all of this is incredibly exciting, I've got to reiterate, the Democrats have all the cultural levers of power at their disposal, and they are getting more and more desperate. There are no limits to the shenanigans that they're willing to try to pull off to stop the return of Trump. This is an existential threat to them. They literally believe, perhaps rightly so, they literally believe he gets back into that Oval Office, they're going to have handcuffs on him. This is it. This is a matter of survival for them. So we have to remain absolutely vigilant in all this. And I hope Whatley and Laura Trump, Mike Whatley and Laura Trump, chair and co-chair, respectively, of the RNC, I hope they're ready to fight just as hard and as dirty as the Democrats are. Because frankly, I'm sick and tired of the Democrats always crossing the Rubicon and us always catching, going, stop, don't do that. Don't stop. Remember, Democrats know that Democrats act like a petulant teenager, knowing that their parents know that were they to act in the same way, they would destroy the family. Democrats know that Republicans know that if we were to act the same way they do, we would destroy our republic. So they hold our love for our nation. They hold us hostage to that love. And my assessment is we've already lost the country. They've taken it, right? I mean, just look at your southern border. All right, just look at the cultural insanity that's going on in our schools right now, in our universities. Just look at the utter absurdity that is Joe Biden. We've already lost the country. So stop allowing them to hold us hostage for love of country. The issue now is let's get it back. And so we need to fight fire with fire, in my opinion. There is no room whatsoever for complacency in this. No room whatsoever. We saw what they did in 2020. They're going to try to pull that off again in 2024 in some way, shape, or form. So we've got to be ready for that. And I would, again, let's get ahead of that. Let's make sure let's just make sure we're ahead of that. We're not trying to catch up. We're ahead. We're going to teach them a thing or two in 2024. I hope at least that's what we're seeing. But that said, the Trump train is surging. Full steam ahead, and let's together with vigilance get him over that finish line. All right, we got a huge victory for the European farmers who've been protesting. Basically, the European governments are, when all said and done, completely giving in to every single one of their demands. Wait until you see this. You're going to absolutely love this. Again, if you're just joining us, if you want to ask me a question, because YouTube has completely and totally demonetized this channel, We're trying to work things out there. But until then, just click on that link below. Join our Insiders Club. We've almost got 6,000 members. Come on and join. You're going to love it. And ask me your questions through that platform. It's join.turleytalks.com. Just $5 a month. And you can ask me any questions that you like. You get out of your job in this economy and maybe considered business or franchise opportunities, but we're totally put off by the $1 million price tags. I recommend tapping into the parallel economy with your own online e-commerce store business and gaining a life of freedom. My friend and fellow patriot Alex Alberon has a tremendous track record of building successful online businesses for Turley Talkers in our community. And I'm so grateful to have him sponsoring this video today. He's a member of Trump Golf Club. He's a close ally of President Trump's, and he's a multi-million-dollar online entrepreneur. He's the real deal. Alex offers an amazing program where he will personally help you launch your own online e-commerce store. He'll help you with everything from selecting products, creating your store, marketing your products, and much, much more. All for a fraction of the cost to start a traditional business opportunity. Turn your dreams into reality. Discover how you can apply your business ability and Alex's framework for online success to create a positive impact for you and your family. Book a free consultation with Alex to learn more by clicking on the link below or by visiting alexalberon.com/Turley. Thanks, Alex. We got a huge win for the European farmers. This is amazing stuff. As many of you know, farmers throughout the entire continent of Europe have been rising up against the draconian green policies of the EU, the bullies in Brussels, as we like to call them, and they've refused to comply. And just to show you how massive of a revolt this is, here's a map of all the places throughout Europe where farmers are rising up. It's absolutely astonishing stuff. And it's as organic as a movement as you could possibly get. Remember, these farmers are not ideologues, gang. They're not right-wingers or left-wingers. They're not conservatives. They're not liberals. They're freaking farmers. They're farmers who are rising up to protect and defend their way of life. This is populism in its purest form. The people versus the political elite, the corrupt political elite. It's the people who are doing everything they can to protect and defend their way of life as over and against the tyrannical impulses of a secular political elite. Well, I am ecstatic to announce that they have officially won. The EU has caved. Brussels has officially killed much of their plans to cut pesticide use. They've killed a number of green farming dictates. They're getting rid of a number of livestock emission standards that would have required farmers to basically kill off much of their livestock. And the beauty is the farmers aren't letting up. They're basically saying, yeah, that's a good start. Now we want you bullies in Brussels, completely out of the European farming industry entirely. They're pushing back and pushing back hard. They want Brussels out entirely from the European agricultural sector, and they're taking nothing less than that for an answer. And it looks like those demands are increasingly going to get met. And this is because one way or the other. And this is because the center-right parties in Europe are absolutely scared to death that the so-called far right, the radical right, the nationalist populist right, basically the people, they're rising up all over Europe, and they're on course to completely dominate the upcoming European parliamentary elections in June, literally just weeks away. And so these center-right parties, these milquetoast globalist parties, they're just doing everything they possibly can to politically survive here. But it looks more and more like the writing is on the wall. All the polls show that the European populist parties, which have grown by over 300% in the last decade, they're all poised to absolutely dominate the upcoming European elections. And they may indeed end up taking total control over the European Parliament. And that would be itself a nightmare scenario for the globalists in Brussels and the Davos and as well as in DC. I mean, that political earthquake of the populists actually taking over a majority of seats in the European Parliament, that political earthquake could indeed be enough to see the whole globalist edifice collapse. We'll, of course, wait and see. But if that does happen, I mean, who would have ever have imagined that globalism, this colossus, would ultimately have been thwarted by the simple, humble farmer? You talk about David and Goliath coming true. There it is. Over to you, gang, as Josh, our moderator, assembles your questions. Remember, because YouTube has demonetized our channel, just click on that link below. Join our Insiders Club and ask me your questions through that platform. It is join.turleytalks.com, join.turleytalks.com. It's just $5 a month. You can ask me as many questions as you like. Also, our good friend Mike Lindell. He needs your help more than ever. Mike's been on the channel a number of times. As you know, he's a good friend here. And he's one of the strongest patriots working tirelessly for the America First and MAGA movements of this country. From election integrity to protecting American businesses, Mike really does it all. And now, as the cabal of deep state lawyers and election machine companies are trying to take Mike down with frivolous lawsuits, he needs your support more than ever. And so to show his appreciation, Mike is offering incredible MyPillow deals with promo code Turley. So if you click on that link below right now, you could save over 60%. You heard that right. 60% on all sorts of incredible MyPillow products. Of course, Mike is offering huge savings on the new and improved MyPillow 2.0. And gang, if I may, I would recommend Mike's My Slippers as well as his bed sheets. These are some of the comfiest slippers and sheets I've ever owned. In fact, I would use that word to describe all of MyPillow's products. Comfy to the max. So don't wait, gang. Support Mike as he fights for election integrity and get some extremely comfy things to boot. It's a win-win. Don't wait. Click on that link or go to mypillow.com/Turley right now. All right, over to you. What are our questions? What do we got, gang? Lucas, good to hear from you. What is the likelihood the Dems will do something hinky and pull off an uncertain election? Sleepy Joe stays in for 4 more years. Also, how likely is it that the polls are actually modeling a correct or likely outcome of this election? I put nothing past Democrats. Absolutely. I'm just not sure what to expect here. And I'm really very worried. Sure, Lucas. Absolutely. Absolutely. No question. I turn that worry into action, right? Turn anxiety into action. Make sure you do everything you can to volunteer at the local precinct. That's the beauty of elections, is they are local. And they are state run. So we do have some inordinate influence over what goes on in our elections that the federal government really can't get involved with. So let's start with the polling and then let's move backwards. The polling appears very accurate. Again, what you're doing is you're comparing multiple different polls with multiple different methodologies, multiple different weight measure systems and the like, multiple different audiences that they're polling. You're looking at all of these different polls, and then what you're doing is you're comparing the polls and their results themselves, and then what you could do is then you aggregate them. You average them out in order to find some kind of get a sense of where all those different methodologies are taking you. And those aggregates tend to be historically pretty accurate of what happens, of what actually transpires in the election. So when you look at all of the polls individually, they're all pretty much showing the same thing. Like I said, you had 33 polls taken in 5-way races since November 2023, and Trump is leading in 29 of the 33, and he's tied in 2. So that tells you, again, these are all different polls using different methodologies, conservative outlets, liberal outlets, moderate outlets. And so that way you're getting a really good sense, I think, that everyone's seeing the same thing, right? And then you average it out, and then you see that Trump has a certain kind of lead in a way that he did not have back in 2020 or even in 2016. He only led in the aggregate a couple of times in 2016. He did not lead at all with in 2020 with Biden. So the methodology we're using there is the methodology of corroboration. You're corroborating one result, one polling result with another polling result done by different people, maybe even in different areas with different samplings, different weighting systems and the like. And then you're comparing to see. Now, if they come at totally discrepant, completely discrepant results, then we don't know. You're right. We don't know. It could be him. It could be him. But we don't know. Okay. But then if you're doing poll after poll after poll after poll, using all those different methodologies through this system of corroboration, if there's a pattern that emerges, generally speaking, we could be pretty confident that that's what's going to be the result. Okay. So that's what's going to happen in terms of the fair and square voting. Right now, everyone admits it. Right now, if the election were held today, Trump would win in a blowout if all things are fair and square. Are the Dems going to try to pull something off? Absolutely. They already are. We don't even see, this is the key. We don't even have to ask that question. They already are. It's called lawfare, right? It's weaponized legalism. So they're already interfering with the election, blatantly so. Right. With the help of the legacy media, with the help of big tech, they're already doing. Big tech is cracking down now on conservative voices, as you probably know, as we're one of them. They're cracking down and demonetizing, which is a deliberate attempt to censor. It's a deliberate attempt to make it harder for our message to get out to people. So are they going to do something? No. The answer is no. They're already doing it. They're already doing it. Now, the good news is thus far it's not working. That's the good news. All the polls show that the vast majority of the American people do not trust our legal system. They believe we live in a two-tier justice system, right? That's the Trafalgar poll that found 8 out of 10 Americans believe we have a justice system that works at the behest of the rich and powerful and at the expense of the average person. So in many ways, that mugshot put Trump in that cultural space of the average person, the person who's being persecuted by the rich and powerful, ironically, right? So it's not working thus far. That doesn't mean election day shenanigans, mail-in vote shenanigans and the like are not going to work. So they could do it, and Biden could steal the election, and we can have another 4 years of total incompetence in the federal government. And that's why, leading up to this, we're going to be building an arc here. We're going to be talking about, we're already in many ways, the plans for that. We're going to be building an arc here about what we can do to find solace and protection and security and sanctuary in the midst of that insanity if we were to get another 4 years of Biden. But right now, the only way we get that is if they pull off some more mail-in voting shenanigans. That's why we've been talking about election integrity so much. Sorry, I got some dust in my eye here. Anyway, so thank you for that, Lucas. Thank you, Jennifer. What's up with Mike Johnson? What's he doing? I'm still trying to figure that out. I watched the Marjorie Taylor Greene interview with Tucker. I'm still trying to figure that out. The only conclusion I can come to is that the Republican Party is a joke in the end. I think that's one of the things that Trump, one of the most wonderful things Trump did was expose just how bought and paid for the Republican Party really is. I just don't know any other way of putting it. I mean, look at Mike Pence, Mr. Pious Christian right Mike Pence. He's just a shill for the military-industrial complex. That's all he is in the end. He's just a shill for Ukraine and Israel getting tons of money and arms that ends up enriching people here at home. They've actually openly admitted that. So I think the Republican Party is a party of paid losers. I think they're paid to throw the fight. I mean, you even see that in Nebraska. Nebraska is a deep red state that, for whatever reason, gives a free electoral votes to Democrats every effing election. Every presidential election, they give a free electoral vote, right, from the District of Omaha. I mean, How do you, and then they have a chance to change that. And then they have now officially a filibuster proof majority in their unicameral. They only have one chamber of first state legislature in their unicameral legislature, and they won't pass it. They could they could do a one size fits all. That's one size fits all, winner take all electoral vote system, and the Republicans are in charge of that. That will, by definition, that will definitely go, since Nebraska's so deep red, it will definitely go to Trump, and they won't freaking pass it. They won't freaking pass. They will not change. They insist on giving a free electoral vote to Democrats. It just tells me in the end they're a uniparty. And in that uniparty system, the Republicans, the Democrats own and the Republicans rent. And the Republicans can't do anything to upset their landlords, their Democrat landlords. And so the solution is get them the F out of there. Get rid of those Republicans, get rid of those rhinos, put in MAGA, America First Republicans, or start a new party and burn the thing down. Because because frankly, there's no point dealing with Republicans who don't play politics, who don't play Powerball, and are going to give free electoral votes to Democrats. I mean, then get rid of them. So there you go, Jennifer. So I just think in the end, Mike Johnson's compromised. He's bought and paid for at this point. America the Free, Dr. Steve, are you white pilled or red pilled again? Your audience was concerned about the black pilled version. Yes, I know. No, look, I mean, in the end, my white pilling, I've always been red pilled, of course, but my white pilling is because I believe I'm telling you the truth. I believe the world is moving in our direction. The world is becoming more nationalist, populist, traditionalist, and civilizationalist. It's happening in 80% of the world. In 2016, I made that argument that that's why Trump was going to win. I started this channel on November 1st, 2016. I was told I was a lunatic, but I said Trump is going to win because I believe this was our Brexit vote. The same dynamics that brought Brexit over the finish line is going to bring Trump over the finish line. I was right. I got to gloat, and that's how the channel started. And we went from 40 subs to now 1.2 million in the course of the last 7 years by me explaining patiently, persistently that the world is a new world is rising. A new conservative, traditionalist, populist, civilizationalist world is rising. And Trump was an indicator. He was part of that larger world. Where I get black-pilled is recognizing the utter demonic depths the Democrats are willing to go, and the uniparty as a whole, like freaking Karl Rove, are willing to go to try to hold on to the old unipolar, liberal world order that's the globalist world order that's collapsing right in front of our faces. They're doing anything and everything imaginable to hold on to that. They literally, there's no tyrannical ends that are off, that are out of bounds for them. And that caught me off guard. I didn't realize, to my own ignorance, I did not, and my naivete, I didn't realize how utterly evil the powers that be are. And now it's hit me. Wow, they are really evil. They will literally do Soviet era antics to stop this massive populist revolt that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as we're seeing. That's been my argument. My argument is you can't put a lid on it. It's going to happen. But I'm not, you need to understand my black pilledness is not overall what's going to happen in the 21st century. Populist politics are the politics of the 21st century. There's no going back. The genie's out of the bottle. There's no going back. You're seeing in Europe, you're seeing in Africa, in the Pan-African movement, particularly in the Sahel region. You're seeing it throughout the Middle East. You're seeing all the conflicts that are happening right now, from Yemen to Israel to Ukraine. Those are all civilizationalist clashes right now. It's basically Sam Huntington's Clash of Civilizations playing out in real time. I am totally white pilled on that. There's no, I mean, it's happening. It's not even, I mean, the conservative age is here. It's not even deniable at this point. What I'm black pilled is in the immediate future, what the powers that be here in the United States and in Brussels are with and Davos, the depths of sheer darkness and evil they're willing to descend to try to hold on to any semblance of what remains of that old world and that old power. That to me is pretty horrifying. And I've got, just have to admit, I've just been increasingly shocked. Just what I'm seeing with this lawfare. I never dreamed I never imagined, I guess I should say, in my worst nightmares, that we would actually be having a major presidential candidate being indicted and legally persecuted this way. Happening in Brazil, sure. Happening in Guatemala, sure. Happening in El Salvador, sure. In Uganda, sure. In the United States, so it just tells me there's, and then when I look at the weakness of the Republican response, when I look at the Mike Johnsons, when I look at the Nebraska Republican Party, who give a free electoral vote to Democrats voluntarily, willingly, I mean, I just sit there and I just go, I look at a Nikki Haley. I look at half of what passes as conservative commentary today among our talking heads. I look at just what's happened to Fox News, and I'm just like, wow, that's not an opposition. That's paid opposition. That's controlled opposition. The whole thing's effing scripted. So this is in the interim. This is in the imminent future, the near future. Long term, no doubt we're winning. We're winning. The question is, what damage do they do to our country in the meantime? Do we split? Is there a Texit? Do we have a MAGA super state of 27 red states that basically excommunicate our coastal blue states in the East and the West? I mean, that's what we're going to have to take a look at. But there's no way our nation holds together under this current old insanity led by a bunch of old dithering woke idiots that they can't persuade. So what they end up doing is they tyrannize. So anyway, there you go. I don't want to get black. Don't get me black-pilled again. Thank you, America the Free. Lucas, again, how likely is that Mike Jones actually going to get tossed out because of his floppy antics? Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, he's literally hanging by a thread. We will see. I don't know the answer to that. Marjorie Taylor Greene seems very set on getting rid. Marjorie Taylor Greene was not happy with Matt Gaetz getting rid of McCarthy because she was worried about this politically. I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, but that she was worried about the political, the fallout ongoing. I think Matt Gaetz bottom line said, if we don't hold, this is the problem, DC, you're not holding anybody accountable. Everybody's above accountability here, right? So anyway, we'll see. But Mike Johnson has just been so utterly disappointing of late. That insane $1 trillion budget package, the package that he passed with Democrat vote. Again, what's the difference between having him and Pelosi in there? Right? This is the insanity. And then just sending more billions to Ukraine. It's insane. Joe, Dr. Steve, I know you do tons of research, and I wondered if you read the article in Town Hall by Jeff Davis entitled "No Way Out, Tumultuous Months Lie Ahead." It was very sobering and terrifying, to say the least. Oh, no, we're getting black-pilled there. No, I have not, but I can imagine what he had to say. Yes, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. Well, we've said that over the last 4 years. These 4 years are going to be rough. The next 4 years will probably be rough no matter who wins. It's just we are a totally divided country. There's reasons for that. We saw that it was really anticipated in the 1960s. We got it a bit in the 1970s as well. 1980s seemed to be a bit of a reprieve, where we sort of found our mojo against the Soviet Union with Reagan. We found our mojo in terms of just our strength and our economic power. Bush Sr. screwed that all up. with the massive tax rise. Clinton came in, kind of tried to hold on to it, keep that Reagan prosperity going. And then 9/11. 9/11 really just seemed to change it all. And then we went to the full unipolar moment where we tried to run the world, and the United States did everything it possibly could to enforce a rules-based order. You're either with us or with the terrorists. And now it's all starting to crash down. The rest of the world doesn't want that world order anymore. They're opting out. BRICS Plus is now financially even more prosperous in many ways than G7 nations. I believe G7 nations account for about 30% of the world's domestic product, gross product, I guess I should say, whereas BRICS is accounting for over 40%, especially with the new OPEC nations that are just newly brought into it. So the empire is seeing its world collapse in front of them, and they're getting increasingly desperate and willing to do desperate things in order to try to hold on to this end of empire period. Just try to hold on to as much power as they can get. But it's every indicator out there. They've done studies on the end of empires, and we are in it, right? One of the big things is it begins to wane in the frontiers. So when you look outside of the nation proper, and you look at sort of its empire range, its hegemon, its sphere, that hegemon begins to shrink. And then you begin to see domestically politics implode as well. So what they're seeing in the frontiers, we saw with the Soviet Union. So Eastern Europe fell first, then the Soviet Union. That's the pattern. Same with the Roman Empire. The frontiers, the Britons, the Northern Africa and so forth, the areas stretching out into the east, those began to wane first. Then the inside plummeted. So you begin to see this this massive sort of this astringent, shriveling up of its influence around the world, and then you begin to see it fall domestically, and that's generally measured by the gap, the division between the people and the oligarchical class. And you see that, for example, in the French Revolution. If the oligarchy and the people are total opposites, the people tend to rise up and overthrow the oligarchy. So I again, it's not pretty, but I think that's many ways what's happening to us right now. Mark, does Trump have a way to stop Soros' hostile takeover of Truth Social? Oh, it's a good question. I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I think so. I think that'd be insane. Again, it would be, Remember, Trump now has more money than Soros. I think Soros is I thought his worth was about $3 billion, and Trump is now at $6 billion. So I think he's twice as much as Soros. So obviously, we'll have to make sure there is some way to stop that hostile takeover. Hopefully. Lucas, how many of you think Trump is actually going to win over the Rust Belt states? Oh, well, I mean, it's not, will he win? He is winning. He's the only Republican that could have won the Rust Belt, and he did in 2016. That was one of the major political earthquakes in 2016, where you had 200 counties, nearly 200 counties in Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Minnesota. He didn't get Minnesota, unfortunately. No Republicans, not even Reagan won Minnesota. But we saw nearly 200 counties in those states that have voted for every Democrat presidential candidate over the last decades suddenly flip over to Trump, and some of them by a 20-point margin. I mean, these were 40-point swings. It was stunning. He should do that now. He is winning the rural areas. That's why he's up 5 in the big data poll. He's up 5 in Pennsylvania. I have no doubt he's going to win every one of those swing states. Wisconsin's always been a hard one to poll, but he should, even with all the shenanigans they pulled in 2020. Biden only won by 20,000 votes in Wisconsin. Trump should crush it in Wisconsin, should crush it in Michigan, Pennsylvania, definitely Iowa and Ohio. That's already a given. The question is just what shenanigans are they gonna pull to try to thwart that honest victory. Thanks, Lucas. Bruce, I haven't seen the Democrats lose voters and candidates in their party. Here in Canada, the Liberals and the National Democratic Party are losing voters and candidates as well. What happens if the globalist agencies lost their support from Canada and the U.S. once conservative candidates are voted in as prime minister and president? I think they collapse, Bruce. I think they're done. By the way, I mean, look, I know there's differences of opinions on Pierre, but Polyev is freaking rocking, dude. I'm sorry. He's hitting all the right notes. He's found the political sweet spot in politics. And which is you move a bit to the left on economics, but you move right on culture. You do that. That's how you end up becoming very, very strong. That's why the left is starting to lose. I'm seeing some of those polls, and you should be having, since you don't have Canada, generally, if you don't have an outright majority, you have snap elections every 2 years, if I recall correctly. So you should be having an election coming up relatively soon. And all the polls show, yeah, you guys are going to rock it. Conservatives are going to freaking rock. Hopefully get a full outright majority there. And Pierre Poilievre, I mean, he's already said he's not going to allow anybody from Davos to come anywhere near his cabinet. Let's see if he keeps his promises. But I think it'll be an incredible shock. Look, I mean, in the end, it comes down to the extent to which the new right is able to apply real influence in policymaking. You saw the frustration Trump had to even just build a freaking wall in 2017 after the 2016 election. I mean, Paul Ryan was the one that was standing against him. Mitch McConnell was standing against him on that. Rhinos, what we call Republicans in name only, are just, when all is said and done, they're globalists. That's what they are. Karl Rove is a globalist. They love the old unipolar world where the United States set all the rules through the IMF and the WTO and the World Bank. And those institutions provided the, quote, rules-based order that everybody had to play by. Canada loved it. Western Europe loved it because they profited off of it. It's like, okay, my big brother's, owns the company. I'm going to have all this great profit. So America took over. They took over Japan, post World War II. They wrote their constitution, for heaven's sakes. Took over particularly Western Europe via the Marshall Plan. We'll rebuild Europe, but then you do whatever we say from this point forward. More or less took over Canada just because of wealth and size discrepancy, but to their profit, and everybody profited off of that. So everybody's one big happy family to keep this globalist order going as long as we can. And now you got China. Now you got neo-Orthodox Russia. You got Hindu nationalist India. You got Ottoman Turkey. You got Sunni Saudi Arabia. You got Shiite Iran. You've got the Pan-Africanism in the Sahel region that's expelling the French every day more and more. I mean, you've got the unraveling, really, of that globalist world, both in Ukraine and even to a certain extent in Israel, with just the clash of civilizations that's going on there. You got Yemen, right? The Houthis calling the shots, and who gets to come into the Red Sea and who doesn't, and basically saying we own this. Reagan would never have allowed that. Biden has really no choice. He can't inflame the region, a region that's already inflamed. So, I think in the end, it's the extent to which the new right, the right that is no longer globalist, that is nationalist, populist, traditionalist, civilizationalist, to the extent that they're able to exercise, they're able to dictate the political agenda. I think WEF is done. I do. I think it's done. I don't think there's any appetite for it and its goals whatsoever. You'll still have UN, you'll still have an EU, but they're going to take on a very, very different character at that point. So, and if, for that matter, the EU may even get dissolved. We'll have to see. So, it's delicious to think about. That's for sure, Bruce. And love it. Big shout out to the Great White North. You guys, I love you. Lucas, I know that polls are all that we have right now. We all love to tune into this, but we all know that polls can be massively wrong. Absolutely. Am I the only one that feels like these polls are geared to make it seem like Trump will win so voters don't turn out? Again, so I'm with you, Lucas. I don't put anything past the Democrats. And that could be an inadvertent effect. I just think the Democrats right now are admittedly freaking out a bit, and because these polls are coming from all different sources and they're all showing the same thing. So that's where the corroboration kicks in. I have a personal friend, a pollster, who I think is the best, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, and so I mean, Rich knows polls like, Michael Jordan knew layups. I mean, Rich eats, sleeps, and drinks polling methodology, the polling art, and so forth. And he could smell a rat. He always knows her. And methodologically, or in terms of who's funding it, or in terms of, who's putting it out there and for what reason, what timing, and so forth. He smells rats. Rich is convinced Trump is running away with this. From all the polling he's conducted, he actually conducts on the ground polling, particularly in swing states like Pennsylvania, just did Michigan. He's big data polling, if you ever come across that. They're not in the RCP average. They should be. That is disgusting. Real Clear Politics should include big data polling. When they include all these other idiot polling like Emerson and so forth, or Marquette, my gosh, they're so bad. But regardless, no, he's confirming, no, what we're seeing is the real deal. What we're seeing is the real deal. Trump is running away with this. I don't think it's an issue of Trump is a master voter. The get out the vote is Trump's strength. We found this out the hard way in 2018 and 2022. No one gets the vote out like Trump. Trump's voters will walk barefoot on glass to vote for him. Okay. It's when he's not on the ballot that the Republicans are facing a huge problem, because the Trump voter is not necessarily Republican, right? You know that, Lucas. The Trump, right? But it probably defines you and me. A Trump voter is not necessarily Republican. They didn't vote for the party of McConnell and Rove. Screw that. I'd rather have Nancy, so at least we could just, I don't know, create a freaking, sanctuary state, red state wall between us and her. Screw that. So we have to understand that Trump voters will walk through hell to vote for him. That's not a problem. Turnout was not a problem in 2020, right? The shenanigans were the problem that we weren't prepared for, like we're never prepared for. It just drives me crazy. So that I think we have to worry about. We have to worry about the shenanigans, not the voter turnout. I don't think we have to worry about that. And I don't think we have to worry about the polls. I think they're accurate. Again, just from this methodology of corroboration. So I'm with you. I'm scared about what they're going to try to pull. I am worried about that. I'm going to come out and say it. I'm looking at what they're already doing with the lawfare, and that is a signal to me that they are serious. They're going to do everything they possibly can to make sure he does not become president again, because they believe they're going to get handcuffs put on him if they do. He's going to round them up, basically, if they do. So to them, this is a matter of survival. So I think they're getting increasingly desperate, and I'm concerned that desperation can turn into success. So I'm being very upfront and transparent with you guys on this. I think Trump is going to win this in a blowout, all things being fair, but they will not be. And so then that's the question then, is what are we going to do about that? All right, Lucas, great. Dave, has Trump started watching the Duran yet? I'm convinced Alexander truly is the Oracle of London. Oh, absolutely. Alexander McCurry's. He is he not? Yeah, they're good friends. This channel, I love the Duran. Been on there. They've been on my channel a number of times. He is the Oracle of London. They get it. They understand this new world that's rising, the civilizationalist world, and they're giving expert analysis of how to understand the dynamics of this new world. So good. First of all, Dave, I'm glad you're watching him. I don't know what Trump. I hope he is. He needs to, absolutely, or at least his inner circle needs to. I know Colonel Doug McGregor was in Trump's inner circle. He's a big fan of the Duran. He's been on the Duran a number of times, understands things exactly the way they do. Jeffrey Sachs, Professor Sachs, would be wonderful for Trump to have in his inner circle. Because, again, Sachs is a realist, politically speaking, or geopolitically speaking. So he recognizes, the last thing we want to do in a civilizationalist world is inflame civilizationalist animosities. That's the last thing we want to do. We want to do everything we can in order to assuage and to bring about peace. And these guys in Washington today and in Trump's former inner circle were just a bunch of idiot war hawks who thought that anytime you inflame anything, don't worry, the United States will come in and solve it. No problem. Yeah, right. Good luck with that. Thanks, Dave. David, around 10,000 missing votes have been added to a Democrat primary tally after being overlooked in what election officials call a human error. Right. Rigged. Your thoughts. Yeah. So even Democrats end up getting put on the receiving end of this. Yeah, this happened in the one you're talking about is different. I'm thinking of another one that happened in Bridgeport in Connecticut, my old backyard where I grew up, where a judge actually ordered a new primary because there was so much evidence of the vote being tainted by fraud and rigging. This was all in ballot harvesting, mules, basically, like what Dinesh D'Souza talks about. Yeah, no question. I mean, that's, again, when you're dealing with at a federal level or at a state level, it's very hard. You could do this on primary levels and local levels, but doing it at a state level, like for Georgia to do this again with 2020 conditions not in place, would be very, very hard to pull off. Not to say they can't, but yeah, even Democrats themselves are. That's the thing. Corruption always corrupts, right? When they say absolute power always, ends up corrupting. Corruption always corrupts. Corruption always corrupts, and that's why this is a short-term solution for short-term gain, but eventually they're going to end up destroying themselves through this very process. In the end, we call them the Democrats for a reason. Lucas, what measures are in place on election day, including tallying in the strange event? Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of votes suddenly appear for Biden at 3:30 a.m. Lucas, you remind me of the Babylon Bee poll, about the satirical site that had, once again, Biden has huge lead among voters who vote at 3 a.m. or something like that, on election day or something. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, the problem of answering this question accurately is every state is different. That's both a strength and a weakness, obviously, but every state is different. Right now, Arizona, Georgia have radically limited ballot harvesting and are increasingly and have tightened the requirements for signature verification and picture ID in voting. Wisconsin has gotten rid of ballot harvesting, and they have gotten rid of Zuckerbucks. Remember, Mark Zuckerberg spent $500 million funding primarily Democrat precincts, election houses and Democrat precincts, so as to maximize the amount of, quote, turnout, meaning ballots, printed ballots, for people. And basically just what they did. They seemed to be legit ballots. They were Biden only. That's why a lot of Democrats did not win down ticket. Republicans did. They were Biden only. They filled them out, and all they did is showed up at their house and got their signature. And then these mules went and dropped the ballot in. And that was funded by $500 million of Zuckerbucks. That they can't do that anymore. Private money can't be used in Wisconsin anymore. So Wisconsin got rid of both ballot harvesting and Zuckerbucks. So that's very, very good. Pennsylvania hasn't done shit as far as I know. Michigan hasn't done shit either. But again, the conditions aren't in place for them to be able to pull off quite what they pulled off in 2020. But we'll see. We'll see. At this point, anything is possible. But all Trump needs is Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, and it's over. As long as he has all the other states, it's over. And remember, Biden underperformed in all the other states, except for those five swing states, which he super performed. Funny how that works out. Kevin, how can there possibly be so many Dems that believe that the regime is doing great things? The pollsters have to be lying about how popular it is. I know that the establishment will stoop to new lows to stay in power. We see some of them strategically retiring, absolutely, when it can do the most damage. Thank you, Dr. Steve. You have been sharing the truth and a lifeline pulling people out of the darkness. Thank you, Kevin. God bless you, man. Well, we're doing it. We're winning. We're winning all over the world. We're winning. The world is moving in our direction. Civilizationalism, religion, conservatism, defined by different cultures, is winning all over the world. We're going to be the last one because we're the apex of the old world. We are the secular liberal center of the old unipolar world. So we're going to be the last ones out of this darkness, but we're getting out of there. Don't you worry. That's going to happen. I hate to break it to you this way, in this sense. And this is not black pill. This is just being realistic. No, I'd say it is close to half the people in the country. Maybe not quite half, 40%. I'm just going based on the polling and based on the studies that I've read. Really do believe we don't deserve to exist as a country. They believe America is fundamentally evil. Remember, I don't know if you saw the video I did on the exorcist who believes that we are the United States is under demonic oppression right now. He's very interesting. He's a Roman Catholic exorcist who's done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of exorcisms. He's talked firsthand to demons. Okay. And he has said that what he sees coming from the higher echelon of our culture. So this is the aristocracy, those who exercise power over the levers of cultural power. He said it's demonic. There's virtually no difference between what he's seeing, encountering one-on-one with these demons, and what's coming top down from our techno-feudalism, our feudal lords. And one of the key characteristics of a demon is self-hatred. Demons hate themselves. This is why they're inflicting so much pain and suffering on themselves willingly. They hate themselves because they hate what God originally created them for. I mean, if you get into, demons are basically fallen angels, right? And when you get into angelology and demonology, it's very fascinating stuff because theologically speaking, right, there are, as I understand it, there are literally like trillions of angels, okay? Because there was an angel created for every single possible person that ever lived. So it's known as the guardian angel. And so there are angels so there are at least, 10 billion angels, right? However many human beings have ever lived. And there'll be billions and billions more in the years to come. So there are billions of angels and they're created all at once, and they don't know the way we know. They don't know what's known as a posteriori. They don't know from sensory data. So you and I know I'm staring at a camera, right? I know what a camera is by encountering a physical camera. And then my brain makes an image of that camera. And then I have another part of my mind that interprets that and files it in with, is this good? Is this bad? Is this neutral? What is it? And that kind of stuff. So knowledge is a process for us because we're physical material beings. Angelic figures have full knowledge, everything they need to know, as it were, about reality and the world and God and so forth, instantaneously. They have full knowledge of that. And then as part of that knowledge, they know everything. They're assigned a person. This is classic angelology. Just go to Thomas Aquinas, for example. They're assigned a person to be their guardian angel. Yeah, George Bailey kind of situation, right? To be their guardian angel. And they know everything about us. They don't know our thoughts. They can't penetrate the inner being, but they know how cause and effect relates to everything. They know everything about the physical laws of the universe. They know what we're attracted to, but what we're not attracted to, all that sort of stuff. They know, and then they use that as ways to draw us to the good, Demons are the opposite. Demons use all that knowledge nefariously for the bad. And then what demons end up trying to inflict on us as much as possible is they try to project upon us their own self-hatred. They hate themselves. They hate what they've been created for. They rejected it. They don't want it. They don't want to be your guardian angel. They want to draw you to your doom. They hate this stuff. And therefore, by definition, at its heart, they hate themselves. Now, the reason why I'm drawing all that up, the number one characteristic of Western society today is what's called ecophobia. O-I-K-O, phobia. It comes from the Greek word ekos, some call it oikos, but the Greeks would say ekos, which means home or house. And then phobia, of course, is fear, but also aversion. It can involve an allergic reaction to something, like, hating. If you have fear of spiders, you hate spiders, right? That idea. We have a fear, a hatred, an aversion for our own. That's what ecophobia is. You go to Japan, you don't see anything like that. You go to Brazil, you don't see anything like that. You go to China, you don't see anything like that. You go to Russia, you don't see anything. You go to the Middle East, you don't see anything like that. People love their own. They love their home. They love their country. That's why nationalism is so popular today. It's so powerful today. It is in America where that demonic sentiment of the hatred of self is absolutely just infusing and infesting every part of our cultural institutions, again, at the top level. And there is a voting constituency that buys into that everything that stands for America should be destroyed. It should be hated, hence the demolishing of statues and monuments and the like. So, yeah, some scholars argue we're the most divided nation on the planet right now. The division between our cultural elite and the people, the heartland, the patriots, could not be greater. And that's one of the signs of civilizational collapse. Now, again, when I talking about civilizational collapse, I'm talking about the collapse of our globalist elite who are ruling over us. Not talking about necessarily our nation, and I think patriots will come back from this stronger than ever, to be honest with you, because that's what we do. We build. We're builders, and this is the beauty of being a person of faith, family, and freedom. But I just think that we are living in a time where, almost half the country is just infested with this demonic spirit that hates ourselves and that hates our home, this ecophobia. And it's something that I think we unleashed when we kicked God out of the public square. We kicked God out of the classroom. We kicked Bible reading and prayer out of the public square, consigned it solely to the private sphere where it just wallows in therapy. And, you move a church from being across from the castle to now being across from pizzerias and dry cleaners. It changes the faith. The faith is now just some kind of therapeutic, a social club, and really nothing more. And that robs it of its ability to become a spiritual bulwark against nefarious spirits that want to take over. And now those nefarious spirits, those malevolent spirits, have taken over. And so I think we are under a real demonic possession at this point. So it's going to require the people of God, the people of faith, to change it. Lucas, with Mike Johnson flipping back and forth, being bought out or placed under duress, how likely is it that House Republicans would be able to oust him before the election and place a true American first speaker finally in that position? I don't know, Lucas. I just don't see. I don't think we have the votes. I don't think we have the votes. I don't think the Republican Party in Washington, D.C. is that healthy. I think they're so compromised. I think Mike Johnson is just as a microcosm of the party as a whole. And I just don't know. He's got to stop passing legislation with Democrats. He's just got to. That's what sunk John Boehner. That's all John Boehner had this massive Republican majority. And yet he kept passing bills where the vast majority of Republicans would vote against it. But all the Democrats would vote for it, and a bunch of rhinos would vote for it, and it would pass. And everyone's like, "Who the hell's the Speaker of the House, Democrat or Republican?" So I don't think so, Lucas. I think we just have to come out in mass in November and do what we possibly can to salvage what's left of the Republican Party in Washington D.C. with real MAGA patriots. Kevin, with the current situation in the House, is it still in our best interest to oust Mike at this time? I want to believe he's a good guy, but the votes coming to the floor have me wondering and passing. Yeah, no, I'm with you, Kevin. I think he's generally a good guy. I mean, the left was totally freaking out that he was this, Christian nationalist, theocrat kind of thing. And, you just kind of roll your eyes going, yeah, right. Well, you'll see. No, I'm with you. I wish he would stop bringing these votes up. I wish he would stop. I wish we would just have a Republican Party that would finally stop betraying their voters. I mean, what is that too hard to ask? That's all we're asking. So no, I'm with you. I just think in the end, we need to focus on November 2024 and just hold our nose for whatever they're doing at this point in DC, because it's a swamp and it's a mess. Kathy, I know the Nebraska bill, all or nothing electoral vote failed because of a procedure detail. Will be resubmitted clean. That's what, God bless him. But Charlie Kirk is really putting some serious pressure on him right now. I think he's even holding a rally in Omaha or somewhere in Nebraska to really push the Republican supermajority now in the sense that they have a filibuster-proof majority to pass this bill. Stop giving Democrats a free electoral vote, for God's sakes, and become the 49th state to be a winner-take-all state. It's just absurd. So we'll see. Yes, I do believe it's getting resubmitted. Kenneth Bryant, voice talent, Dr. Turley, the retraditionalization, restoration, conservatism is on track to be reestablished in our country, but clearly the aftermath of progressive Marxism will leave its mark. True. Very true. Also, de-dollarization is gathering momentum around the planet. What are your thoughts as to how a post-progressive America will look? Good question. Good question. Well, again, I am of the opinion that we are in a what's technically referred to as an interregnum. So this is what Antonio Gramsci, ironically the Italian cultural Marxist, referred to as that period in between when the dominant paradigm falls, and yet we are waiting for the new paradigm to rise. And the interregnum is a very, very volatile, crazy period. And that's where, so I'm the Patriot professor here to keep you sane in the midst of these insane times, right? So the question then is what rises to replace it. Right now, I'm seeing three options when all is said and done. Obviously, we're seeing wokeness that has replaced it. That's in the positions of power right now. It's going to collapse. It's going to fall apart. Even leftists hate it. So its time is limited. Then you really have two options, it seems to me. You have sort of the center-right option that is kind of the old liberalism. That's trying to make a comeback. I mean, classical liberalism. And I think that's where Jordan Peterson is positioning himself. Dave Rubin is positioning himself. These are, Joe Rogan. These guys are not leftists, definitely, but they're not MAGA rightists either. So I think you have that more libertarian paradigm that wants to go back to classical liberalism before it went secular and before it went crazy. And so that's why I think Jordan Peterson is very, very focused on bringing a robust, albeit modernized faith and Christianity back into the public square. And then the third one, I think, is the MAGA crowd, or what others call MACA crowd, and that's just make America Christian again. I mean, it is nationalist populist to the core, faith, family, and freedom, where faith can now be taken out of the prison of the private realm and make its way back into the public realm, so that we have a moral center that protects us and immunizes our nation from leftist insanity. This is not that America becomes a theocracy or anything like that. It's just simply faith, the faith that guided our forefathers from, the late 1680s all the way through our forefathers, who believed faith was absolutely essential for self-governing people because it was indispensable for the formation of civic virtue. I think that experiment will continue. So I would see the center right and the more sort of Christian right, for lack of a better term, coming together and forming the new supermajority. That's what I'm seeing come. Again, until we get rid of the woke, all bets are off. They're going to create all kinds of mess. They're going to woo some on the center right to them because, abortion, IVF, all this kind of shit. And I just think eventually, though, the center right, Jordan Peterson realm, and more the MACA world, Make America Christian Again crowd, which is basically the patriot wing, the grassroots of the America First movement. I think they're going to come together and form the supermajority. That's my view. Wouldn't that be amazing? When having Jordan Peterson as our left wing? I mean, the promised land has come. Scott, how did the 2024 Donald Biden polls compare with 2020? Great question. They couldn't be starker. When all is said and done, this is a great question, Scott. When all is said and done, Trump never led any of the aggregate polling in 2020. Never at any point. Right. Democrats were literally doing somersaults when they found out one poll showed that Biden was beating Trump in Wisconsin by 1 point. They were, oh, thank God. Oh, good. Oh, good. Dude, in 2020, he was beating Trump by 17. Okay. There was one poll that came out that showed Biden ahead of Trump by 17 in Wisconsin. So the key is that all the polls, literally all, it doesn't matter what you're talking about, Emerson, New York Times, Quinnipiac, Big Data, you name it, all the polls, Trafalgar, have shown a double-digit swing to Trump since 2020. And now the question is why? Why is that happening? And the answer seemed that Byron York of Washington Examiner, no fan of Trump, he's argued because Trump in the end has the easiest campaign pitch out there. Things were great when I was president. Biden came in, made everything horrible, put me back in. I'll make things great again, right? Make America great again. It's that easy. And what we're finding in poll after poll after poll is that whereas in 2020, voters were more confident and trusted Biden more with issues. They tried to trust Biden more with COVID, Biden more with the economy, Biden more with inflation, maybe Trump up 1 or 2 when it came to crime, and Trump up a few when it came to the border. Now it's all just double digits Trump. It's all double digits. All right, I recant. You saw it. That's why I started with the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Yeah, I endorse Biden. I'm partly responsible for this insanity we're experiencing now. So what am I doing? I'm not endorsing him this year. Nope, I'm not. I'm no endorsements coming from me. No. So he's stepping back, and that is what Rich Barris is finding in his crosstabs. Rich Barris, People's Pundit, definitely subscribe to his stuff. He's amazing. His crosstabs is what he's found is there is a significant portion of people who voted for Trump that he's interviewed in his polling that voted for Trump in 2016, got cold feet and voted for Biden in 2020 that are coming back and voting for Trump in 2024. They're admitting they made a mistake, and there's too many of those voters for Biden to win. That's his argument. Again, we'll see in terms of shenanigans, right? That's always there. There's the shenanigans. But in terms of an honest vote, it doesn't look like Biden has a chance at this point. Olga, has anyone heard about the rain tax? I'm late logging in. Sorry. Oh, that's no problem, Olga. No, I have to look that up. I've heard something about it, but I haven't done any research to be able to render an informed opinion on it. Maybe in the comments, somebody can give you something. William Wallace, freedom. Greg Gutfeld suggested abortion will be a deciding factor in turnout, with pro-choice using Dobbs and local ballot initiatives to juice their turnout. Can the Republicans create a message that would minimize this effect? Well, so Trump is concerned about it. So he is supposed to give a statement sometime next week about where he's coming on abortion. He's going to be more moderate. Again, he's done his job. He got rid of Roe, right? He did his job. And I think everyone who's pro-life needs to honor that and stick with him on it, regardless of where his views are on that. He did the thing that was unimaginable to left-wing liberals. He killed Roe v. Wade. And so that's gone. Roe v. Wade is gone, at least as far as the eye can see, from the Supreme. Well, no matter what, I don't think they can do anything to reverse that. So anyway, we'll see. I'm unconvinced IVF or Roe are that big factors. I think Democrats are just much, much better at getting in the early mail-in votes. And then they create a deficit that election day turnout simply can't overcome, especially when there's shenanigans like in Maricopa County on election day turnout, right? Wink, wink, Katie Hobbs. So we'll have to see on that. Yes, there's obviously messaging that Republicans can do there. I'm not I have to think about it more from the vantage point of, look, this is coming down to your state, and this is an issue we all radically disagree on. So isn't the best way to solve this one of, at the state level, if you're pro-life, go to a pro-life state like Texas, no abortions there, right? Or Mississippi or Arkansas or Missouri. Go to a pro-life state. If you're pro-choice, go pro-abortion, go to a pro-abortion state. There are plenty. California love to have it, right? And by the way, you're demographically disappearing. Okay, that's what you want. Go for it. I think that's what Trump is going to basically say. Or he might even say, look, can we all agree ban after 15 weeks? That's generally what they have in Europe. Okay, and Russia. Can we all just say, up to 15 weeks? All right, fine. For pro-abortion states. But for states, but for states that are pro-life, leave them alone. That's what they want. Again, liberalism is a universalist system that is tyrannical by its nature, and that is colonialist by its nature. It's imperialist by its nature. So I think in the end, if you do a 15-week, by the way, and for the record, I'm totally pro-life. I don't believe in abortion, but I'm also pragmatic because that's what politics is about. It's the use of power in such a way that works. And so the 15-week ban, which is ironically the Dobbs decision originally in Mississippi that overthrew Roe v. Wade, that might do it. That might placate a lot of fears because 80% of the public has no problem banning abortion after 15 weeks. They're not as radical as New York or California by any stretch of the imagination. Or he may just say, look, I mean, if you're pro-abortion, go to a pro-abortion state. If you're pro-life, go to a pro-life state. But that's what the Supreme Court decided. It's going to be done at the state level. There is no constitutional vision of abortion at all. So that's why it doesn't even matter what Democrats pass. They get new majority again, they pass this, everybody has to honor abortion law and enshrine it and codify it into law. The Supreme Court will just overturn it. Said, no, you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. At a federal level, it's unconstitutional to have any particular position on abortion. Now, I would have loved to have seen them go full pro-life, and then that way it doesn't matter what they come up with. But anyway, I just, in the end, I think it's just the Democrats are really skillful in ballot harvesting, creating an unassailable majority of votes months in advance, which now Laura Trump sounds like she is being co-chair of the RNC. Looks like she's going to be able to do it with Republicans, and then we just crush them on election day. That's what I think is really driving this, not so much abortion, but we'll see. Thank you, William Wallace. Jules, why are they so damn confident? I'm so attacked on platforms. Just need a catchy phrase to tell them off. Well, just say, hey, man, even Jimmy Kimmel is admitting Trump's ahead in all the polls. Or you can smile and say 29 of the last 33 polls, Trump's ahead. Yeah. Which team would you rather be on? Trump never led a single poll. Now he leads in 2020. Now he leads in 29 of 33 polls. Yeah. So I hear you. They're gonna. Trolls are gonna troll. What are you gonna do? JR Wiz, Steve. The biggest question is: do you smell what the Rock is cooking? What the Rock is cooking? Are you talking about Dwayne the Rock Johnson? I do not. I did not even know he cooked. Jules, does Trump need Nikki? No. Nikki will hurt Trump. No, Nikki will hurt Trump. Nikki's support came from billionaires and from Democrats. No, he does not need Nikki. And Democrats who had no intention of voting for her in November. Rosemarie, didn't Thomas Paine speak about pretend patriotism? I do not know, but I could see, I can imagine that might be something he would talk about. Good question. Nancy, what would a civil war look like in your opinion? My thoughts are patriots versus globalists and states splitting. Yeah. Well, there have been a couple of studies on that. It would probably be something akin to the Civil War in Colombia in the, if I recall, 1940s and 50s, which was basically a rural-urban battle with the contested turf being suburban areas. And ironically, it was over, if I recall, racial grievances in urban areas. But basically, we saw, I think, we got a glimmer of it in 2020, the race riots in the summer of 2020, when you saw patriot militias rise up and defend rural areas like Coeur d'Alene, for example, in Idaho, where they were literally on the streets with their AR-15s patrolling and then kicking out any rabble-rousers that would come their way. And then they started making their way into suburbs, and they were welcomed by the suburbs to protect them from the what they just saw as the destructive anarchy that took over the cities. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was something akin to the Colombian Civil Wars. It would not be a military so much as it would be kind of gangs versus militias, or urban gangs versus rural, Second Amendment based militias. And then in the Colombian Civil War, the police took the side of the rural areas, and I think they would do the same thing here. And so that's the way I think it would play out in terms of the map. I could see, we have to remember that many the cities can be easily what do you call it? Besieged. Thank you. Finding my old. They could be easily besieged by red counties that surround them. So that's the problem with being in the blue. The blue are dots in a sea of red. And if the sea of red mobilizes, they can easily end up isolating and besieging and cutting off blue areas. So no, I don't think a civil war would turn out very well for Democrat sympathetic areas. So that's the way I would see it playing out. Joan, why do so many conservative outlets keep saying MAGA falsely claimed the 2020 election was fraud? Are they afraid of being sued? Yep. Yep. As media is always so careful to say alleged about a criminal, even when there are multiple witnesses. Yeah, I think they are very afraid of being sued, particularly by Dominion, and they don't want what happened to them. They don't want what happened to Fox and Rupert Murdoch happening to them. When Rupert Murdoch just basically paid him out, what, $700 million, and then seems to have fired Tucker. Firing Tucker seemed to have been a part of that agreement. We don't know. Tucker himself does not know why he was fired, but that's why. It shows you who runs things. Republicans don't run things. Democrats run things. Democrats created permanent Washington. Democrats infested over the course of nearly 30 years of uninterrupted presidential rule of FDR and Truman, and 40 years of unprecedented congressional rule before the 1994 Republican takeover. The Democrats created a deep state, and then they took over all the cultural institutions, including the courts. And so the Republicans rent, Democrats own. It's just that simple. America the Free. We are now sprinting towards November, and the new RNC has limited time to secure our elections. Can you remind us of the most important things this audience can do to ensure that Democrat shenanigans don't succeed? We have, Josh, I don't know if you have it available, or Mike, if you have it available. We actually have a whole training on this. We have there's 3 things. There's actually 4 things that you can do to secure those, to secure our elections from any shenanigans, as it were. But I'll give you the lay of the land. First and foremost, ballot harvesting. We do in states where ballot harvesting is allowed. This is where Scott Pressler's been brilliant with Early Vote Action, EVA. Go check them out. earlyvoteaction.com. Or just type in Early Vote Action, and make sure you sign up and become active in any way possible that you can with that. Second, make sure you volunteer at your local election polling. If they know that MAGA patriot eyes are everywhere, they get very, very nervous. They try. This is how we found out about all of the polling machines not working on Election Day in Maricopa County, like 30% of them, whatever it was. At first, the Election Commission's guy came out in this stupid, weird Mr. Rogers voice saying, "Oh, everything's fine. No, there's no here. You just need to know how to remember. You did this video. You just need to know how to work the machine, and here's how you do it. Everything's fine." Within an hour, you had to come out and say, "Yeah, you're right. Something's wrong," because all of these polling workers were polling all videoing and putting up on Twitter all of the problems that they were having there. So you got to make sure you're volunteering at your local, and you're just right down the street polling place. Steve Bannon would add to that, make sure you end up volunteering as a precinct worker. That's different because precinct workers and officers can actually vote, and they can have some influence in how things work in your election. So become a precinct officer. That's Bannon's precinct strategy. And then also check in. There's a special website you can go to. Maybe go to True the Vote. They'll be able to take you to that. True the Vote is really neat, where they'll say if you've moved in the last couple of years or last few years, you need to check to see that your name has been removed from the voting rosters of that previous state. There's a lag often where you're actually registered in 2 different states. Democrats know that, and they snag that information. They grab it, and then they vote on your behalf in that state that you left. So you want to check. They have a website you can check to see if you're still registered to vote in the previous state you lived in. You want to, if you are, you can have that erased immediately, and you want to do that every year. As I understand, thousands of people vote twice. They didn't even know it. They vote in their previous place of residence that some nefarious character end up exploiting. So those are a few things that you can do. In the video or in the training, I get into some of the technology and some of the electronic voting, but again, we're a little behind on that, unfortunately. So hopefully, hopefully that just doesn't become an issue like it was in 2020 again. We'll see, though. Again, it's only if our Republicans actually stand up and fight back like they should. So there you go. There's some things you can talk about. Patty, Dr. Turley, when will we see justice return to America? Are we to assume that the Obama period of time put so many deep state dirty judges that this witch hunt is allowed to continue against Trump? We see so many facts and truth coming out about the Biden crime family, and nothing is done, right? They're the two-tier justice system. When will we see justice? Well, again, right now, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the Supreme Court, ironically, it seems to have been more or less the one institution not touched by this insanity. We still have sanity coming from the Supreme Court. That 9-0 decision that absolutely smacked down that utterly corrupt, politically vengeful Supreme Court in Colorado. Those 4 Democrats, they're all Democrats. I think it's it was a 4-3 decision. I mean, that's in Colorado, that smackdown at least breathes some life into the fact that, okay, we do have one institution that's not touched. Trump will bring all these cases eventually to the Supreme Court. Many believe the immunity decision will go in his favor. That will end it. That's supposed to come out this summer. We'll see. I don't see how they can't rule in his favor on that. The immunity will end it. They'll virtually end all of it. It won't end the Stormy Daniels one, but that, and with the DA, with Bragg, that will probably get turned on its head, just because Bragg should not be prosecuting federal cases, right? That's just that's what he's doing. He's a local DA prosecuting Trump on federal charges. That's something for the Justice Department to do, and Justice Department turn that down. So, but anyway, I think that'll get turned over. The key to watch for is whether or not the Supreme Court rules in favor of Trump on, and by the way, there's a lot of good judges that Trump appointed as well. He appointed even more than Obama. But yeah, there's still a lot of corruption out there. And just the law system itself is secular and positivistic and corrupt. Positivist law is the opposite of natural law. Natural law means law is divine, and we're supposed to align our civil laws in accordance with God's eternal divine law. Positivist law is basically made up, and it's always made up in such a way that favors and benefits the rich and the powerful. But basically what the Supreme Court is going to look at is whether or not a president is immune from indictment for anything he's done in office, barring conviction by the Senate. So in other words, the objective standard for whether or not a president has done anything wrong is impeachment. That is the impeachment is basically the charges brought against the president. If that passes in the House, then there is a trial presided over by the Supreme Court justice, by the chief justice, and if that president is found guilty, then that president can be indicted. He's kicked out of office, and then that president can be indicted for something done wrong. If you do not have that objective standard for indictment, then a president can be indicted for anything. Indictment can be weaponized. This is what happens in banana republics. You serve a term or 2 terms, and then you leave office, and then you get indicted every single day of your life because indictment gets weaponized. We could turn around and do this. Think of all the crimes we can indict Bill Clinton on, and Obama on, or George W. Bush for that matter, right? Or Dick Cheney. Think about it. All the crimes we can indict all of them on. Be absurd. But because they've not been convicted in the Senate, we have no basis to do that, because that is the way you hold a president accountable. I think, by God's grace, the Supreme Court is going to rule in Trump's favor. That's what immunity means. It doesn't mean Trump gets to do whatever he wants. He could just go shoot people in the street and, I'm immune. No, immunity means you cannot indict a president for a crime he has not previously been convicted of in the constitutional procedures of holding a president accountable while in office. You cannot indict him for just anything you want. So if they find in his favor, then most of this goes away. So, and I'm hoping they will. All right, we just have a couple of more here, gang, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. We're hitting about the 2-hour mark. Let's say Trump does get, this is from America the Free, let's say Trump does get a second term. Do you think he'll be able to make a good on his promise of mass deportations? Logistically, it seems incredibly difficult to round up that many people, but it's a necessary step to restoring our country's culture, security, and rule of law. Okay, absolutely right, America the Free. What we found, what happened in 2017 when he assumed power, is that we saw a mass epidemic of self-deportation. People left because they were afraid of what he would do to them if he caught them. They weren't necessarily confident he was going to deport them. They were worried he was going to jail them, especially if they've been committing crimes in addition to being here illegally. So I think it would be a combination of actual deportations, which probably, it should be something that nobody would want to have happen to them. And then what you end up getting is you get self-deportations. So the combination of those two things ends up effectively reversing this demographic insanity that we've been seeing over the last 4 years with Biden. Bill, I'm a registered Democrat, but I'm changing my affection to the MAGA Republican Party. And you may also find it fascinating that I'm a descendant of Walter Q. Gresham, our nation's 33rd Secretary of State. He also changed his party affiliation as he became Secretary of State. So in a sense, history is repeating itself in many ways. We're seeing a time, in my opinion, that will be studied for generations to come. I'm also writing a book, and we'll see you Tuesday on that. I will see you Tuesday on that. What do you think? Thank you, Bill. We might have a interview on Tuesday. We'll have to see. What do you think? No, I'm with you. I think we're seeing a major political realignment happening. As it's something that British scholar Matthew Goodwin and Roger Eatwell, they've written quite extensively about, and that is the parties are just changing, and the sentiment among voters is changing. So in Britain, back in the 1960s, I think it was about 50-60% of the public was very allegiant to one of the two major parties, the Tories or Labour. Today in Britain, it's only about 10%. Only 10% find any sense of allegiance, fidelity, loyalty to any of the major political parties. They have more now, but any of the major political parties. I think the same thing is happening here in the United States. I used to feel very allegiant towards the Republican Party during my Rush Limbaugh days. I converted to Republicans, this is a word, back in 1994 during the Gingrich Revolution. It's the first year I voted. And I loved Rush, and I was a totally proud Republican. And then since Trump, really, since 2015, 2016, I recognize how vile the Republican Party is. I no longer see myself as a Republican. I'm registered Republican, so I can vote in the primaries, but I no longer see myself as I have no problem ripping up my Republican registration card. I have no loyalty to them whatsoever. My loyalty is to MAGA, Make America Great Again, America First, nationalism, populism, traditionalism. And what we're finding is that there's a lot of blue collar Democrats who'd been voting Democrat in every election since 1988. And find themselves in the same thing. I'm no longer loyal to the Democratic Party. It's nationalism, populism, traditionalism, localism, and the like, anti-globalism. And if the Republican Party is the formal political expression of that, then call me Republican. Great. I don't care what you call me. I could jump from the Republican Party in a heartbeat. No problem whatsoever. That's not my loyalty. My loyalty is, I guarantee you, is exactly where yours is. Patriotism, nation, culture, custom, tradition. That's where our loyalty lies. Making our nation America again. I don't even know if it's about making it great again, just making it America again. Just loving, getting rid of this ecophobia, getting rid of this self-hatred, this demonic delusion that's taken over so much of our cultural institutions, and returning to a sense of custom and culture and tradition and pride and Americana. That's if that requires me to sign up with the Democrats to go for it, sign me up. If it requires me to go with the Republicans, sign me up. So there is this realignment that's happening all over. I think the Democratic Party is demonic at this point. I just don't see any other way around it. And I see about half the Republican Party, the rhinos, the establishment party, the Liz Cheneys, the Karl Rove, as participating in that demonic delusion. So no, MAGA's the way to go. And it's great to have you home, Bill. Awesome. Can't wait to find out about the book. Jules, how does social media like Zuckerberg actually benefit it from have Brandon win? I'm not sure how it seems a little hard to understand, but just bottom line is just Brandon's got big tech's back. You could sue big tech all you want. You could try to get big tech to conform to the section 230 that says they're not supposed to be editors and publishers in the content that goes up on their platform. They're supposed to be like AT&T. AT&T doesn't tell you what phone calls you can make. It doesn't interrupt the content of your conversation. We don't like that conversation you have. It's offensive to our to those who are listening in, that kind of stuff. So as long as it's a 230, section 230 utility, they're supposed to stay out of editing and censorship and the like. They basically have each other's backs. The Biden administration tells big tech, go ahead and censor on our behalf. And then whenever you're sued, we've always got your back. Justice Department and so forth, we're never going to give you any problems. That's basically how it works. John, hi, Dr. Steve. What have you heard about the White House trying to shield the federal bureaucracy from Trump? Yeah, in his second term, I have read that. I don't think it's going to work. They're just trying to put in some measures to try to stave off Schedule F. If Schedule F is put in, which is like Order 66, right, for the Jedi. I don't think it'll work in the end. They're just trying to prolong the legal battles that they think they'll be able to keep their jobs with. It's an indicator they're scared to death Trump's coming back. That's what it is. It's insurance of like, holy crap, this may happen. We better prepare for it. I don't think it's going to work. That's my personal opinion. We'll see. Joan, I heard that more rhinos like Ken Buck threatened to resign. Yeah, and leave Mike Johnson with fewer Republican reps for a majority. That they use that to blackmail him into supporting those spending bills. Yes. What do you think of this being I think so. I think that's I actually use that one of my arguments. That's right. I forgot to even mention that. When I say Mike Johnson's compromise, I did forget to that's right. That was the other option I forgot to put in there. Thank you for that, Joan. He basically has no choice. He's being told, put these Ukraine bills, put these spending bills on the table for us to vote on, or I'm leaving, and we'll bring Nancy Pelosi back. Yeah. I think they're just sick people. It's the uniparty. It's the establishment. Barbara, Steve, with The Rock, not Bite Night, will Taylor Swift endorse Joe? Yes, I'm sure she will. I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. Again, all the endorsements we saw in 2020, all of them, including Dwayne Ross, and Biden only won by 40,000 votes when all said and done. 10,000 in Georgia, 10,000 Arizona, 20,000 Wisconsin. Those 20,000 are not going to happen in Wisconsin, by the way. Right? Did you see that in Wisconsin? 40,000 Democrats in the primary, 40,000 voted. It wasn't none of the above. I forgot there was something you can vote as a protest vote. 40,000. Most of those are Arab Americans, Muslim Americans who are voting in protest of support of Israel over Palestine. So he only won by 20,000, and 40,000 of his voters voted to basically abstain for voting from him. So yeah, he's in trouble. He's definitely in trouble. Lucas, might be a bit off topic, but what are your thoughts on the advancement and development of these emerging AI technologies, a role that they may play in the future of American politics? I don't know what they'll play. Well, no, I take that back. I mean, so interestingly, AI is playing a huge role in geopolitics. Russia, China, Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia, Dubai, they're doing their best to become leaders in AI, because Putin himself has said it. He who's the leader of AI basically leads the world. That's what he's seeing. In other words, imagine if you can have an AI that can tap into a formula that guarantees success for any business, right? Well, implement that across the board. And all of a sudden, you've just increased your GDP by 10x, right? So, I mean, you have an AI that's figured out every single, strategic military pattern that another military is capable of doing, and then it gives you all the options to overwhelm them. I mean, the possibilities for AI at geopolitical levels are insane. So they are redefining geopolitics right now as we speak, and I think in many ways Russia and China are ahead of us. China does want to be the leader in AI by 2030. Here in the United States, I don't know so much on politics. I mean, like the Gemini, the Google Gemini that came out that gave us, like the non-white founding fathers and reformers and Puritans and so forth. I mean, it's just such a joke at this point. I mean, literally, wokeness literally turns to shit anything it touches. It's just such a joke. It is going to change. I just talked to Mark Strauss yesterday. He has a book coming out, or already out on. He's a tech expert. I mean, Mark Strauss did say, you got to be prepared. I mean, 20, 30, 40, 50% of our jobs can end up getting AI'd, just in the next few decades. That's going to be a huge thing. And that's inevitable. That's going to happen. There's no stopping that, it seems to me, especially we're seeing it now in California, $20 minimum wage. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, then here you go. Get rid of your cashiers and, put in machines and McDonald's for that. You don't have to buy the machine just with maintenance. You're good to go. So that's where I see it. I see it happening. I mean, I'm not afraid of AI, because I don't see human beings as fundamentally just, material cause and effect. So I see us as inherently spiritual beings. I see the soul is irreducible to material causes. In other words, I don't think I could find you. I can't open up your brain and find you. You transcend your brain. So I'm not afraid of AI, like taking over the world. I think it's a little. I think that tells me more about your view of humanity than it does about machines. Let's put it that way. And that's where I think Elon Musk, for example, is a little unsophisticated theologically. But having said that, I think it's obviously they're going to change everything. Just the way everything got electronized, right? Like your toothbrush, everything got plugged into electricity at some point, so forth. Everything's going to get AI'd in some way, shape, or form. And the key is to make sure that it is always helping our human flourishing, not harming it. So, but with that, we got to move on. I think there's just a couple of more credit. Anita, is there a bill ready to be passed that Speaker Johnson is agreeing to, that the open borders will not be closed unless they give money to Ukraine? I don't know. I don't know about that. Unfortunately, I think Biden is running, and the Democrats are running away from the border as fast as they can. They've been outplayed on the border. Unfortunately, I don't think the answer to that is yes. And I'm with you. I think but the problem is Washington is so broken. It almost looks like it doesn't matter what bill they put forward. It's always going to have some kind of insanity connected to it. America the Free. Let's say Trump does get a second term. Do you think he'd be able to make good? We already talked about that. We are now sprinting towards November. We already talked about that. Olga, what about all the Chinese nationals at our border? Yeah, no, it's insane. It's crazy, Olga. It's great. It's crazy. Again, this is, borders are an indicator of whether or not a society is going to flourish or whether or not it's going to implode. And when the barbarians are at the gates, as it were, I'm not calling Chinese barbarians, but it's the Roman. It's the idiom that we use of Alaric and the barbarians who were on the barbars, as the Greeks would call them, because they couldn't speak Greek. When they talked, they would ba 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 ba, made them sound like some foreign language, right? So unsophisticated foreign language. So when they were on the frontiers, not penetrating inside the Roman Empire, we were fine. But the moment the barbarians, as it were, started coming more and more into the empire, and the moment the empire didn't pay them like they promised they would because they were mercenaries, they penetrated Rome itself. Yeah, no, I mean, this is guaranteed implosion of our country unless we can get a handle of our borders. If you don't have a border, you don't have a country. It's that simple. Josh, what were the Zuckerbucks you referred to in Wisconsin? So Mark Zuckerberg, back in 2020, spent nearly $500 million giving money to election aid workers in heavily Democrat districts to enable them to print up ballots with the names of voters. I don't even know if they were registered or not. I'm assuming they were registered, may not have been, or they got them. And they also was a voter registration drives as well. And then what they did is they took the ballots, went to individual houses in heavily Democrat districts, got them to sign the ballot, or if they weren't even there, I think sign for them, and then dumped the ballot in a ballot harvesting box that then were brought by mules and so forth, and then brought to counting houses. So the money was spent in heavily Democrat areas in key swing states so as to disproportionately bring out the Democrat vote that gave Biden that 10,000 vote edge he needed in order to win. In Wisconsin, it was 20,000 votes. They're not going to have that vote edge without those massive bucks coming in, and they're not allowed to have private funds inordinately affecting their elections anymore. So that's basically what Zuckerbucks were. And that's it. All right, gang. Have a beautiful, wonderful weekend. God bless you guys. I'll see you Monday. Keep the faith. Pray hard. Love each and every one of you. God bless.